Daniel Ricciardo's exit from McLaren was one of the shocks of the season, but his move back to Red Bull may have been even more surprising. McLaren decided that the young Aussie Oscar Piastri may be a better bet, but getting Ricciardo out of his contract was not cheap. Ricciardo has been able to cash in big time, and it might surprise you to find out that this wasn't the first time Daniel has managed to make some serious money swapping teams. Today, we'll reveal how Daniel Ricciardo has won at Formula 1, even without a world championship. McLaren's decision to drop Daniel Ricciardo for Oscar Piastri was always going to have consequences for the team. Thanks to the contracts that Formula 1 drivers sign, they can't just be fired unless they do something really catastrophically stupid. So when McLaren announced that Daniel wouldn't be driving for them in 2023, despite having a contract for the year, there was plenty of discussion about what it would cost them. Some reports suggested he might leave by mutual agreement. Maybe in some weird alternate reality where people can happily give away tens of millions of dollars because they feel like it. We don't live in that world though, and there was no way Daniel was going to be so happy about getting fired that he was also willing to forget about the $22.2 million McLaren owed him in wages. Those reporters must have been living in a fantasy land. The real story here is that McLaren thought that Daniel Ricciardo was so bad, or that Oscar Piastri was so good, that it was worth spending $22.2 million to make the swap. The younger of the two Aussies, Oscar, is clearly going to be an incredible driver in the future. He won the Drivers' Championship in Formula Renault Euro Cup in 2019, then Formula 3 in 2020, and then Formula 2 in 2021. That is an incredible feat, and puts his pre-Formula 1 record on a par with any driver currently on the grid. The step from Formula 2 to Formula 1 is huge though, and only time will tell if he can repeat that success in the big leagues. If McLaren were willing to spend this much money to secure him in a race seat for 2023, it does make you wonder what on earth Alpine were doing when they let him slip. Thanks to Daniel's $22.2 million severance check from McLaren, combined with his $2.1 million salary from Red Bull, Ricciardo will earn $24.3 million in 2023. Despite not even being in a car. That means that despite the fact he won't even be racing, Daniel will be the third highest paid Formula 1 driver. So he may not have won a world championship yet, but he's definitely won Formula 1's driver shuffle. Actually, if we look deeper, Daniel's incredible financial success in Formula 1 starts to look even more impressive. The 2023 financial package will take Ricciardo's career earnings in Formula 1 to more than $121.4 million since he first raced in F1 with the tail-end Hispania racing team in 2011. Thanks to inflation and the changing financial structure of the sport, it's impossible to tell where Daniel sits on the imaginary Formula 1 all-time top earners list, but he has to be up there with the likes of Lewis Hamilton. His recent firing from McLaren isn't the only genius financial move Ricciardo has made though. In fact, the move that's regularly pointed to as the beginning of the end of his career was actually the perfect financial play. The Australian added only one victory to his tally following his shock switch to Renault for 2019, having won 7 times in a productive 5-year stint at Red Bull. But that move may have been the best option available to him. Former Jordan, Red Bull and Cosworth executive Mark Gallagher has said that Ricciardo's move to Renault 4 years ago was motivated by money. He said, "He's just had this slightly turbulent time really since he left Red Bull Racing. We all remember he took that flight where he sat on the plane thinking about, should I stay at Red Bull or should I go? And he decided, I've got to take the plunge and go to Renault." That move at the time was met with disbelief by many, including his former team boss Christian Horner. Red Bull had recently been a Drivers' and Constructors' Championship winning team, and outside of Mercedes or maybe Ferrari, were the team best positioned to win world titles. But just because Daniel was at Red Bull didn't mean he was going to be the one winning titles. Gallagher continued, "Someone close to Daniel, close to Red Bull, said to me not long afterwards, he's cashed in, he's taken the money, he's going for the big paycheck because he knows the World Championship is not going to come to him. It's certainly not going to come to him at Red Bull because Max Verstappen is the number 1. Actually, he knows it's not going to come to him at Renault, but Renault team boss, Cyril Abiteboul, is going to pay him a massive amount of money." Renault, now called Alpine, were after a big name to back their aspirations of winning World Championship titles again. Daniel was meant to come on board as someone to help push the team forward as part of a long-term project of winning titles, and Renault were willing to pay him huge money to be a part of that project. Gallagher finished, "Why would you not take it? Because when you're getting into your 30s and you realize that that World Championship prospect is diminishing, take the big money. Why wouldn't you? Because that's going to set you up forever in a day. Not only did he manage to get that big offer and then deliver the podium result that he and Cyril had talked about, he then got lured to McLaren with another big paycheck. And of course, again, why wouldn't he take it? But it's been a very different experience at McLaren. At Renault, Daniel was the main man, paired with Nico Hülkenberg in 2019 and then Esteban Ocon in 2020. Ricciardo was clearly the best driver on the team, and Renault made no secret of the fact he was number one. At McLaren though, Lando Norris signed the longest contract in F1 history at the time, and Daniel was very obviously just there to help Lando grow and develop the car. Daniel was number two, and the weight of his lack of success became too much for him. Despite this, Daniel Ricciardo insists he has no regrets after leaving Red Bull at the end of the 2018 season, despite moves to Renault and most recently McLaren yielding comparatively limited success. After debuting with Hispania in 2011 and swiftly moving over to Toro Rosso, now AlphaTauri, Ricciardo secured a promotion to Red Bull for 2014, going on to claim 3 pole positions and 7 race victories during his time at the squad. While Ricciardo claimed a victory during his first season racing for McLaren at the 2021 Italian Grand Prix, it proved to be the highlight of an otherwise difficult spell that saw the fan-favourite Australian go from potential title contender to midfield struggler. Recently appearing on F1's Beyond the Grid podcast, Ricciardo was asked if he ever pondered what might have been if he'd stuck with Red Bull, given that Verstappen has claimed 30 wins and 2 world titles since his exit. I don't look at it like that, because nothing is sure. If I stayed there the last 4 years, could I say I would have had more podiums than I've had? What have I had? Maybe 3 or something? Yeah, I'm confident to say I would have had more podiums than I've had, said Ricciardo. But you just don't know. Obviously, at the time, I felt like it was right for me. I felt like I needed a change, and I needed to just remove myself a bit. If I continued at Red Bull, would that urge have grown? Would I have become, let's say, more curious, or less happy, or whatever? I'm not sure that it would have been great if I stayed. I don't look back and say, man, I shouldn't have left. But of course, I can be honest with myself and say, yeah, I took a little bit of a gamble on myself. As good as Daniel was at Red Bull, Max Verstappen was very quickly emerging as a generational talent. And Daniel clearly realized that he was never going to be number one on the team, just like Mark Gallagher said earlier in the video. Daniel says he would have won more podiums if he had stayed at Red Bull, and at the time, that would have been amazing for him. But in 20 years' time, they will only be memories. The amount of money he's made by leaving Red Bull, though, will still be in his bank account. Ricciardo added that he remains proud of elements from his time at Renault and McLaren, having returned the former to the podium and the latter to winning ways, while taking a philosophical approach to his recent struggles. I still feel like the Renault move was pretty good, especially 2020. That was one of the best seasons I've driven in Formula 1. To get the team back on the podium, I was very proud of that, he commented. Daniel should be incredibly proud of how his career has gone. Sure, he hasn't lived up to the expectations of his fans or the media, but he has made an insane amount of money, and he's enjoyed himself while doing it. Isn't that all any of us really want? Do you think Daniel made the right choice, joining Renault for the money? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.